of the Women's and Gender Studies program at the University of Colorado, Denver. She is here along with Sarah Tyson, who is the Assistant Professor of Philosophy at the University of Colorado, Denver, and she volunteers at Webs of Support, which is an organization that supports survivors of domestic violence in prison. They both do studies together at the University of Colorado on women's studies and feminist thought. Please welcome Gillian Silverman and Sarah Tyson.
Thanks for coming out today. President Trump's supporters like to defend his record on women. They point to the fact that over the years, he has promoted women to the top echelons of his business empire. They point to people like Deirdre Rosen, an executive for the Trump Hotel Collection, and more recently, Kellyanne Conway, Trump's campaign manager and now counselor to the president. Trump himself has said, and I'm quoting him here, "I have been very, very good for women. I was way ahead of the curve. I hired a lot of people for top jobs, and they're among my best people." A lot of women for top jobs. Citing Trump's advancement of women in the workplace, his daughter Ivanka has even famously called him a feminist. For Trump and his daughter, women's progress seems to amount to individual women advancing into positions of power. And he's not alone in this view of feminism. In the 2013 bestseller, Lean In, Sheryl Sandberg takes a similar stance. She counsels women to climb the corporate ladder. She advises them to lean in by taking on more responsibility at work and splitting childcare and domestic labor with their partners. Now, gender equity in the workplace is an important issue, and we would never want to suggest that women shouldn't strive to occupy positions of power, or that they shouldn't demand more childcare on the part of their partners. But this issue of gender equity in the workplace is only one example of the important feminist work we must do. And today we want to insist that leaning in is not enough. It's not enough for middle-class female executives to march into their boss's office and demand raises. It's not enough that women shatter the glass ceiling by becoming CEOs and CFOs. And it's certainly not enough that Donald Trump has promoted a handful of women into positions of power in his company. The great feminist critic Bell Hooks has written that the problem with mainstream feminism is that it's too focused on this issue of gender equality, equal pay for equal work, and women and men sharing household chores and parenting. Equal pay and shared parenting matter, but their inflation into the be-all, end-all of feminism leaves us with a closed-off movement. A movement that blocks out the voices and the pain of so many women from so many different walks of life. The more difficult task of feminism today is to combat what Bell Hooks calls sexist exploitation and oppression. Sexist exploitation and oppression, whether it occurs in the boardroom, the courtroom, the classroom, the bedroom, or in North Carolina, the bathroom. The real challenge, in other words, is to recognize that we live in a society that systematically degrades women. The real challenge is to resist those voices, many of them female, who say, I don't care how Trump treats women as long as he brings change. The real challenge is to recognize that what Trump calls locker room talk is more than just meaningless banter, that it contributes to a culture of rape and harassment. The real challenge is to recognize that grabbing women by the genitals is sexual assault. And the real challenge is to struggle against this degradation in all of its forms every day. How can we do this?
Thanks for being here. As university professors who teach classes on feminist thought, and it's good to see you here. We are constantly reminding our students that expectations for women, their assigned roles and characteristics, depend on where and when they live. We want our students to think about specific moments in which certain ideas about women came into being. Women weren't always thought of as fragile and maternal. In America's colonial era, white women were seen as stalwart and tough. And of course, most black women were seen by the dominant classes as workhorses, and indigenous women were targets of genocide. This is what it means to think historically. It's about challenging our assumptions about women and exposing these assumptions as taught and learned. Thinking historically is the only way we come to realize that things haven't always been like they are now. It's the only way we can see that certain ideas about women are actually created for specific social and political ends. Like the idea that women are naturally fragile, or to get closer to Trump territory, that they function primarily as objects of erotic attraction for men. Thinking historically is the only way we begin to realize that ideas about women might have been created differently, that change is possible, and it's the only way we can recognize ourselves as the agents of that change. So we need to think historically about the present moment. Trump is one force shaping ideas about women. The people gathering all over the country and the world today